Crafty Chris here, another Thursday night Scrap Your Scraps. Tonight we are going to make some quick little stocking stuffers. Often people are using little packages of facial tissue or napkins. Napkins obviously going inside lunch boxes, tissues for facial tissues for blowing your nose, that. And we're going to make little boxes for each of these. They're both different sizes. One is bigger and taller, but it's the same process no matter what we do. So we're going to start with the smaller piece. I've already drawn a picture of how I'm going to lay this out, but for you, I am just going to tell you what to cut, and then that way you have a bit of an easier job. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to get a number of scraps from your scrap bin that are not Christmas paper, because you want this to last beyond Christmas. You want it to be something people use throughout the year. So I have 4 different papers here, and I am looking for a maximum amount of so on this one, it is 3 3/4 is what I need. So I'm going to trim one of these down to 3 3/4. So it's going to be 3 3/4 by 12. So 3 3/4 by 12. And I'm just going to put that in my scrap bin. And then I need to have, the length is going to be 11 inches, and I'm just going to double check. We have 4, 8, 9, 10, 11 inches. So I'm going to cut this at 11 inches. I think I'm going to keep that one at that end. 11 inches. Okay. And I'm also going to keep that little piece in my paper. All right. So now we need to get our scoreboard, and you're going to need a 12 by 12 scoreboard, and we are going to score the horizontal lines on the paper. Even though we're going to be doing the lines vertically on our score pad, they are actually the horizontal lines on the design. So first we're going to stick her in there, and my first measurement is 4 1/4, so that from here to here I need 4 1/4. And I'm not going to press super hard. I'm just going to go over it 3 times very lightly. And then from here to here is 3/4 of an inch. So that puts me at scoring at 5. So I'm just going to do that. And then I need another 4 1/4 inches here, so that puts me scoring 1, 2, 3, 4 at 9 1/4 inches. 2 and 3, and then I need another inch, so we're going 3/4 of an inch, so we're scoring at 10, and then that gets us to 11 inches. So if you look at the back, you can see my scores. So this is 4 1/4, that's 3/4 of an inch, 4 1/4, 3/4 of an inch, and 1 inch. Now I'm going to do my vertical, or actually it is the horizontal. No, this is the vertical, the actual vertical scoring. So I need 3/4 of an inch, and because this was cut 3 3/4, I can just score right at 3 inches all the way down. Again, don't press hard, just go over it 2 or 3 times. And I'm going to turn it around because I don't like working way up here. It doesn't give me much to hold on to. So I'm just going to make sure I have my paper flat, and I'm going to score at 3 again. Okay, and you want to use a little bit of a heavier cardstock for this. The light cardstock printed paper isn't probably good for this. All right, so now I am going to do some cutting. I'm using my a different cutting board because this one allows me to cut out from within a piece of paper, whereas the other one is a chopper, and the chopper doesn't let me do that. So the first thing I'm going to do, oh, look at that. I lost the blade from inside my chopper. That is very weird. Where would that blade have gone? I've never had that happen before. So the actual metal is missing from my blade, and it was just there a few minutes ago. Weird. Really weird. Okay, so I'm gonna be right back. Okay, I am back with a new blade now. This is what happened, and it's not a small thing to see, so I will find it when I get down on my hands and knees and have a look. But what I'm missing is this little plastic piece that snaps in, so that blade will be usable once I can locate that missing piece, which I will do on another day. All right, so, oh, here it is, stuck in my cutter. Why did I not wonder about that first? Okay, so there it is. I'll fix that later. Okay, new blade. Alrighty, so on my blade, you can see two lines, the center line, and then there's this little line that goes over top. It's a ridge. I can put my fingernail in there. That helps me line up my cuts. So the first cut that I am going to make is, let's see, down here. So if you look, wait a minute, I got it backwards. There we go. So this is my 4 1/4, and then here is my 1/8. So I need to cut 1/4 inch down to, I'll measure that for you, down to 5 inches. So I line up my embossing in the center with the center of my cutting ridge. Then I drop that in, and I'm just going to cut to the halfway mark. So, I'm at a 1/2 inch. Yes. I need to have a 1/2 inch. Okay. So let me think about that. You know what? I'm not going to do it from there. All right, so starting again, here's our piece. We are going to put this top piece. So down here we have no horizontal lines. So we're going to go and start with the top horizontal lines. So we're going to line up the center of our scoring with the center of our cutting space, and then we're just going to cut down to 1 inch. Okay, and then we're going to move this over and do the same thing. We're going to cut down to that 1 inch point. And you can see why I use this ruler, because it allows me to see where I'm cutting. So I've got 1 inch and 1 inch. Okay. Then I think that's all I can do on that. So now I'm going to put it in horizontally. And starting at the bottom, I'm going to line up my first long cut. That would be the 4 1/4 from the bottom there, and I'm going to center the score in there, and I'm just going to go 3/4 of an inch, and then I'm going to shift it 3/4 of an inch to my next emboss. Actually, before I do that, I should do both sides. So let me line up my blade again. And this is the easiest way to get it centered, is Get your blade back in there. Okay. There we go. So now I'm going to lift this and move it down to the bottom and go up to the 3-inch mark. So now I have a cut here and a cut here. Then I'm going to shift it over 3/4 of an inch, line up this scoring with my cutting, and go down from the top 3/4 of an inch to there, lift up, go all the way past the bottom of the page, and then come up to the 3-inch mark. So now I have cuts at the top and bottom. Same process down here, lining up here to here is 1 3/4 inch, making sure my scoring is in the center, and I'm going 3/4 of an inch. Then I'm lifting up, moving this down, and going up to 3 inches. Okay, and you can see the cut, the top and the bottom. And then here is going to be 1 inch. I'm lining up the center of my scoring with the 1 inch, and I'm coming down 3/4 of an inch. Then I'm lifting, moving my blade below, and then I'm coming up to the 3-inch mark. Okay, and you'll notice that those last 2 pieces fall out, and that's what they're supposed to do. Okay, next cutting. So we're going to leave the top, which is here. Now it looks like my drawing again. And we are going to reduce the size of 2 of these and 2 of these. So we are going to go in, and we want our score line to be at 1/2 inch, centered at 1/2 inch. And now we are going to cut down to the 5-inch line. Okay, and you'll notice that these little pieces come away. That's perfect. Then we are going to flip, and we are going to line up our score line with 1/2 inch again. And we are going to cut down. Now there's a bit of a space here, so the number you're cutting down to is 6 inches. Okay, and then these 2 little bits will come off. So now you can put your cutter away for a moment. And now we're going to shape our tabs. We may end up taking these tabs off. First thing we can do is take half of the, okay, so this is the top with the jag out of the bottom, and we're straight at the top there. We're going to just take about 1/4 of an inch off of this one, so it kind of matches the other side. Okay, now the square cuts, the big ones, are our sides, so we can't cut those, but what we want to do is just trim to the inside of our fold line our tabs. Okay, and we're going to do both sides. Doesn't matter if they're matching or not. We're just taking and creating these little tags. Okay, so they will fold in. Again, the larger one we're keeping square, so the opposite side we're creating that little tab. Okay, now on these, this needs to be reduced to the same size, so I'm going to take this piece, our flat edges at the top, our double pokey edges at the bottom, and I'm going to reduce the size of this And now I am going to trim this. To create my little tab. And I'm going to trim this to create my little tab. Now this side is a side, so I need to have square edges. So now I can just trim this tab and that tab. Okay? So now, if you just take a little look over here, you can see where my design now is very much like my drawing. Okay, and I have taken the tabs off of here and here, but I haven't here and here because I'm not sure how steady or how solid it will be without them, so I'm going to leave them until the last minute. All right. So now we need to fold some lines. So we're going to fold everything in along the scored lines and make sure everything folds in. Okay, so those are all my horizontal lines. I already did some of my vertical as I was going. Now I'm going to do this vertical and this vertical. Okay, so this is in effect our box. So we need to join our box top to bottom, remembering that the angled sides get tucked in to the square sides, because the square sides are what we want to see on the outside. Okay, so we're going to start down here and we're going to glue this side piece to this, and then we're going to glue this side piece to that. Now I say glue, but I prefer you to use a little bit of the double-sided tape. You can use glue, but glue, if it's not fast drying, isn't going to be a great option. And we're just going to put a little bit of tape at the bottom edge and the top edge of the, I'm just going to trim it because I've got a little too much. It's starting to stick. So I've just taken that tab, folded it in, and now I've just given it a bit of tape. I'm going to tape off, cut off the excess because I don't want it to stick. You can see there's a bit of excess tape. I don't want it to stick to my tissues, so I'm just going to take that off. And now you can't see, oops, you can't see my tape on that side, but you can see my tape on this side. So I'm going to take the top of that off. I am going to line up this bottom edge with that tab and that tape. And we're going to make sure that it's stuck nice and tightly. So now I have a corner created. Okay. Now I'm going to do the same thing for the other side. Should have done it maybe before I stuck the side. Oh well, doesn't matter. So I'm going to take my tape, trim it, and when you trim it, it gives you an angle, so you can take your tape and go backwards and trim it. And I want to make sure that I have no tape on the inside that's going to stick to my tissue. So I just check that you can't see my tape on that side, but you can on this side. So that's perfect. Just take my papers off. And now I'm going to take this square edge and align it with this edge. And I'm just going to fold that guy out of the way so I get a nice alignment. There we go. Okay, so I have two sides created. Now I'm going to put tape on the long sides. It's easier if I hold this down here. Okay, and then I'm going to turn this around and put this across here. Oops, that's crooked, doesn't matter. Some sequin tape or whatever this is, double-sided tape will bend. Okay, so we've got a nice solid area there, and before I glue it together, I'm going to do this side as well. So we're all set to go. All right. And since I cut that on an angle, I just use that angle to stick it on the bottom edge. Okay. There we go. All right. And then I just trim that so I don't see any paper. Okay, so now I can take the edges off of both, but I'm going to start one at a time. And I'm going to pop that in, fold it under, and line it up with, oops, you got to really get it. You only have one shot at it. Oh well. I'm a little off on that one. I'll make it a bit of a wompy, wiggly base, but that's okay. So you want to stick it under and make sure you get that bottom completely lined up with the edge, and then it will be the proper height. Okay, so there's your box. Just run your handle on it. Make sure you've got it all nicely put together. Now this is what I wasn't sure of, because I can do two things. I can tuck that in like that, and that in like that. Or I can just take these off, which I think I will. Just going to take these off. There we go. And then that covers up nicely. And now I'm going to round the corner of this with my widest rounder I have, corner rounder I have. And then that is going to stick in there like that. And my box is finished. Now let's see if it will hold what my plan was. So here are my tissues. I'm making sure that the folded edge is up so it's easier for the person who's receiving this gift to pull them out. And then I'm popping them in there. And look, they go in perfectly. And I can even put more in. Now there's two options I have for closing. I can just simply close like that and then they can open at will, or I can close by putting a magnet on the front, and I can dress this up however I want. I can put some sparkles on it. I can put brads. I can put well, I can't put brads now because I've closed it, but I can put gems. Many different kinds of decoration. Now remember I said because I closed it, I hadn't closed it correctly. So I'm a little off on this side, but I don't think once it's closed that anyone will care. So there's my first of my small boxes. Now, let's do the same thing, but we're going to do it with a larger package, and we're going to do it with this package of Kleenex. So I'm going to take a paper, and now because it's 1 inch on either side and it's 2 1/4 inches in the center, that makes it 2 4 1/4 inches that I need to cut. So I am going to 4 1/4 inches. There we go. And that piece I'm putting in to my stash, and that's all I need to do at the moment. So now we're going to do some scoring. Oh, and let's see, let's count. 4 and 4 is 8, 9, 10, 11 and a half. So I need to take a 1/2 inch off of this before I go any further, because the length is 11 and a half. And I want to keep, let's see, I want to take the 1/2 inch off up here because the colors aren't as dynamic. And the nice thing about this pattern is it goes in different directions, so there's no up and no down, which is really what you'd like to have. Okay, all right, so now we are going to do our embossing, or our scoring. So the first score is going to be at 4 1/4. So there we are at 4 1/4, and you're just going to lightly go over it 3 times. Then you have 1 inch, so we're going to move from 4 1/4 to 5 1/4, and again go over it 3 times. And then we have to add 4 1/4 again, so we are going to jump from 5 1/4, 6 1/4, 7 1/4, 8 1/4, 9 1/4, and then add a quarter, so we're at 9 1/2 inches for our next score. And then we're going to need 1 inch, so we're going from 9 1/2 to 10. Okay, 1 inch is not 9 1/2 to 10, so let me just take that off, flatten that out. So it's 10 1/2 is my inch, and then I have 1 inch left. Now, if you do, like I did, an incorrect score line, so you can see my score line there, okay, all I'm going to do is flatten that out, front and back. And make sure that I don't fold on that line at all, and it should be okay. So now I'm going to do horizontal, or the vertical scoring, and it's 1 1/4, and I need to go in 1 inch, so that brings us to 3 1/4. Or 4 1/4, and it brings us to 3 1/4. And I'm going to switch it around so I don't have to worry about putting pressure. And I'm going to do 3 1/4 again. Okay, so if you look on the back, you can now see all of my scoring. All right, so we don't need the scoreboard again, but we do need the cutter. Just like we did with the last time, we're going to cut out the little parts of our design. So our design has cutouts that need to happen down in this area. So I'm going to turn it around so I have where it's double scored here, not where it's not scored. So we're up at the top, and I am going to take out the first square, and I'm lining up my score and at 3 1/4, and I'm going to come down 1 inch. So I'm coming down 1 inch. Then the next one that I'm going to do is the other side, and it should be lined up with the 1 inch here and the center of your cutting. and you're going to come down 1 inch again. Just make sure that that's straight. There we go. Coming down 1 inch. So my line in my blade lines up with my 1 inch. Okay, now we're going to go horizontal. We're going to put what we just cut in, and we're going to line up our first line 1 inch. Make sure our score is centered, and we're going to hold our paper. We're going to come down 1 inch. Then we're going to lift our cutter, bring our blade below the paper, and we're going to go up 1 inch. And you will see we've removed those 2 pieces. Now we're going to line up at 1 inch again and make sure our score mark is lined with our cut. And we're going to come down 1 inch, lift up, oops, and making sure we're lined up down here. We're going to drop our blade below and go up 1 inch. Then we're going to move down. So this is the top that has the multiple folds. Now we're going to go into the center section, and we're going to cut here, cut here, cut here, cut here, the same way. So lining up, this would be at 6 inches over here. Lining up, cut down 1 inch, and cut up 1 inch. All right. Cut down 1 inch and cut up 1 inch. Okay, so now you can see that we have all our cuts done. Now we need to do some hand cutting. So we can put our blade away, or our cutter away. Oh, no, we can't. Sorry, one more round of cutting. So we are, if we put this back in the look that we have of our picture, I need to cut this piece and this little piece at 1/2 inch. So I'm lining up my score with the center of 1/2 inch, and I'm cutting straight down to 5 1/4, because our size is different now. And if I lift that up, that will disappear. And I'm still going to leave it on 1/2 inch, and I'm going to trim this as well. So I'm only going up 1 inch. So this side will be 3 3/4, and I'm going up 1 inch. And that little piece comes out. Okay, now we're going to flip it around. We are going to line up this fold with the 1/2 inch. We are going to cut this little piece. Actually, we're going to cut all the way down here. So we're cutting from the top down to 7 1/4 inches. So holding your paper, cutting down to 7 1/4 inches. Oh, it's more than 7 1/4 inches. Sorry. Let's do that again. Oh, I was too short. That's what the problem was. 7 1/4 inches. There we go. All right. So now we have small tabs, 2 large square tabs, and these guys are all small, and that's something completely different. Okay, so now we're going to take our scissors. And up at the top here, I'm not sure how I want that to fit, so I'm just going to cut into and create a tab. Okay. I'm leaving my big rectangular side, but I am going to trim the small rectangular side. Just like we did with the other one, on both sides. And this little piece, I am also going to trim. And the reason we're trimming it is so you get a nice corner. Okay, I'm leaving that big rectangle, but I can cut this small rectangle. So I'm just going to cut that into the center and off to the side. And I'm going to cut this one into the score line, and this one into the score line. Okay, so that's all the cutting. I would probably keep these 2 longer pieces. All the rest is too small. All right, so now we're going to fold things up. So just fold everything up to the inside, showing the outside. Okay, there we go. Alrighty, so we are going to be putting adhesive. Let's try to make this nice and stiff. So you want to have a nice clean fold. So I would just run my bone folder across that side, and then run my bone folder across this side. All right. So now I am going to put adhesive here and here, here and here. I'm leaving these till a bit later. So let's get our double-sided adhesive ready. And I've already got an angle, so I'm going to start that angle right at the edge of this piece and trim it so there's no excess. And now I'm going to turn it around because now I have the angle going in the other direction. And this is just how I use my tape. Make sure you cut it on an angle and don't have any exposed. So there's that angle again. I can put that on this edge and trim. And then turning it around and putting it here. These I find easier just to turn over and trim. So then we go to the opposite side. We're going to do exactly the same thing. I think I like the way that that's folded. Okay, sometimes with scoring, you can get a bit of not exactness. That makes no sense, but I know what I meant. It's a little off, and there we go. There we go. Just have to play with it. And then it lines up. Okay. And making sure to make this so there's no overlap. I'm just going to put it right in here. Cut that quite straight. There we go. And then here. And I'll just review where I've put the tape before we move on. Whoops. And there. Okay. Whoops. Okay. So if we look at everything folded in, and it's one long strip, the big rectangles have been left alone, and the little rectangles have the adhesive top and bottom. Okay, we didn't do these yet because we're waiting to see how that works out. So the first thing we're going to do is take the strips off of the little pieces in the center, and we are going to fold. Oh, we forgot to pre-fold that, which we can do right now. It's no problem. We're just going to make sure we fold it nice and straight. There we go. All right. And we're going to line that right up with the edge, making sure that it's a nice tight corner. And we're going to do the same with the other side, making sure it's a nice tight corner. Okay. And you're going to want to press that from inside. Oops. Nice tight corner. There we go. So it's a little awkward. There we go. And then we're going to take our long strip from one of the sides, and you're going to line up right from the inside corner all the way up to the top. Okay, and just run your finger in there, or if you need to, you can put a ruler in there just to pat that down. Okay, and now we're going to do the same on the other side. Pop it in, line it up, make a nice tight corner. Okay, and if you can't reach in with your hand, just reach in with a ruler. Okay, and there is our box. So we're going to test to see if that can be put together. And I don't like touching people's tissue, so we are going to open up the tissue pack and literally push it in with the plastic. And then you're going to want to play around with it to get it in the right place. And there you have your tissue pack. Now these can tuck in on either side. And you can have this close with a magnet or a loop. But I'm thinking I do not want these sides. Just like with the other one, they are cumbersome and they could end up just being a pain in the long run. So I'm trimming them off. Sorry, I'm out of camera there. Alright, so I trimmed them off so I have my top and my flap. Okay, now I can tuck it in. Oh, helps if you round the corners first, so let's do that with our big corner rounder. The bigger the better. Makes it much easier to tuck in. There you go. There's my tucked in box. Or I can leave it out and put a decorative button or something on there and put some glitter and whatnot. So there you have it. Same plan, 2 different sizes, 2 different products. One great stocking stuffer. Hope that was good, and it's something that you think you might use, and we will see you later. Have a great week. Bye.